I had always believed in us. 8 years. 8 long years of sacrifices, of putting his needs before my own, of supporting him when the world seemed against him. I had worked tirelessly to keep our home stable, to make sure he had everything he needed to succeed. But in that moment, I realized I had been supporting a man who never truly valued me. That's when everything changed. It was an ordinary afternoon when I walked in on the two of them. I had just returned from a business trip, still wearing my work clothes, feeling tired and eager to finally get some rest. I didn't know what I was walking into. My husband had told me he'd be home late, tied up with work, but I guess I had underestimated how quickly things could change. The house was silent, too quiet. As I entered the foyer, I noticed the light from our bedroom door was ajar. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Maybe he had left a light on or was getting ready for bed. But something about the stillness in the air felt wrong. I froze when I heard the faint murmur of voices. I walked closer, my heart racing, unsure of what to expect. The door was barely open, so I stood behind it for a moment, listening. It didn't take long for me to hear their voices clearly, though. "Why are you still here, anyway?" "I told you, it's only a matter of time before I leave her for good." My husband's voice, once comforting, once full of love, now sounded cold. Calculating. That's when I knew. He was talking about me. The woman he promised to cherish for better or for worse. The woman he had made vows to. He was talking about me in the past tense. "But she's such a fool," his work wife chimed in, her voice laced with the venom of someone who had no remorse. "She'll never see it coming. You've been stringing her along for years. I've never met anyone more naive. It's almost funny how much she supports you without realizing you're just using her to climb the ladder." I could feel the words slice through me like shards of glass. I wanted to move, to confront them right then and there, but I couldn't. My feet felt glued to the floor, my body locked in place. I could hardly breathe. The shame, the betrayal, it was suffocating. "She doesn't deserve you, anyway," the woman continued. "She's a simpleton. You've done so much for her already, and what does she give you? Nothing. She's so predictable, so boring. You deserve someone exciting, someone who knows how to keep up with you. Will have a life she could never give you." I heard him chuckle, a hollow sound that had never been in his voice before. It was a laugh that wasn't born of love or amusement, it was the laugh of someone who had already made up their mind. Someone who had already decided that they no longer needed the person they had vowed to cherish. Exactly. I've had enough of pretending. I'm going to divorce her. It'll be easy. The house is in her name, everything's tied to her career. I'll leave with nothing but the satisfaction of knowing she's left behind with nothing. I'll tell her I just need space, that it's over, and she won't even see it coming. She'll be devastated, but I'll be free. I could hardly believe my ears. The man I had spent 8 years with, the man I had loved with everything I had, was now plotting my downfall with a woman who wasn't even worth my time. She was the one he had chosen, the one who had filled his empty spaces while I'd been busy building his future. And now, together, they were planning to destroy me. My throat tightened as I clutched the edge of the door for support. My mind was racing. My heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest. He was going to leave me with nothing, and he didn't even care. He had already decided my fate, and the worst part? He thought I was too blind to see it coming. But I wasn't blind. I wasn't weak. I had always supported him, helped him become the man he was today. I had been his cheerleader, his partner, his confidant. But now, I had been reduced to a fool in his eyes, a mere stepping stone to his happiness with someone else. I heard the woman laugh, the sound grating against my nerves. "You're so right. And don't worry about the finances. I'll help you take care of that, too. You'll leave with nothing, and she'll be none the wiser. She'll be alone, humiliated, and you'll be free to start over with me." The mention of finances hit me hard. He had been so focused on his career, on his own success, that he had neglected everything else. I had been the one keeping everything together, the bills, the house, the accounts, the insurance. All of it. I had supported him when he was struggling, been his sounding board when he was uncertain, and now he was going to take everything I had helped build and walk away with it. His voice softened. I can't wait for the day I'm finally rid of her. I know she'll be a mess, but it'll be better for both of us in the long run. I'll be free of her, and you'll be the one I can really be with. No more pretending, no more lying. I'll give her just enough to think everything is okay, but she won't get a dime. I'm done. Tears began to well in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I refused to show weakness. I wasn't going to let them have the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Not now, not ever. I slowly backed away from the door, my mind spinning, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. Not after everything I had done for him. Not after everything we had built together. I walked away from the bedroom, but my heart felt heavier with each step. I had known for a while that something was off, that he had been distant, but this was worse than I had imagined. I had been living in a lie, and now it was time for me to take control of the situation. I couldn't confront him now. I had to be smarter. He had no idea I knew what he was planning. And I wasn't going to give him the chance to manipulate me further. I had to get everything in order before I made my next move. But one thing was certain, the game had changed. I wasn't just his wife anymore, I was his opponent. And I would take everything from him. Starting with the one thing he could never take back, his reputation. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The sound of their voices echoed in my mind, playing like a cruel lullaby. Every laugh, every insult, every plan they whispered behind my back, it burned into my memory. But I didn't cry. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the clock as the hours dragged on. While they slept soundly in my bed, I was already crafting my response, not the emotional one he expected, but a calculated one. You see, I had spent 8 years learning his weaknesses, his habits, the passwords he always reused. I was no fool. I had just never needed to use any of that information, until now. By morning, I had a checklist. Legal prep. First thing Monday, I'd visit a lawyer. I needed to know my rights and how to protect what was mine. Documentation. Bank statements, property deeds, shared accounts, I needed copies of everything before he got any ideas. Workplace intel. They were playing games in my home, but I knew their affair bled into their workplace too. If they were foolish enough to let it cross professional lines, I would find it. Asset protection. My name was on everything. He hadn't bothered securing anything because he always assumed I'd be around. Big mistake. By the time he came downstairs that morning, groggy and rubbing the back of his neck like nothing happened, I was already calm, cold even. Didn't you say you were working late last night? I asked casually. Yeah, had a ton of emails, he said, grabbing his coffee. He didn't meet my eyes. Liar, I smiled gently. You worked too hard. He kissed my cheek without thinking. You're the best, babe. It took everything in me not to flinch. But I had my mask on now, and I wore it well. Over the next week, I moved like a ghost in the house. Silent, watching, listening. Meanwhile, I visited the lawyer. Fortunately, my prenup had a loophole, one he had forgotten. If I could prove infidelity and financial exploitation, the assets were mine, and he would walk with nothing. I just had to gather evidence. I combed through our joint accounts. There were transactions, lavish dinners, hotel bookings, luxury gifts, all from my card. She wasn't just his mistress. She was freeloading off me, too. I took screenshots, printed statements, documented everything. Then I turned to their workplace. He worked for a tech company where professionalism was sacred. Fraternization between employees, especially married ones, was a huge violation of policy. They weren't exactly discreet either. A little sleuthing on LinkedIn revealed the HR manager was someone I went to college with. One coffee meeting later, I knew what I needed. If I could prove inappropriate behavior, both of them would be terminated immediately. I played nice at home, even more affectionate than usual. I cooked his favorite meals, complimented his looks, encouraged him to take time for himself. He thought he was winning. He thought I was still clueless. Every night when he went to work late, I tracked his location. Screenshots, timestamps. I even hired a private investigator to follow them and get photos. And he did, not just of them kissing in parking lots, but going to hotels, leaving together, laughing while I waited at home like a loyal fool. 2 weeks later, everything was in place. One quiet Thursday, I went to his office, unannounced. I asked to speak with HR. I slid the photos across the table, the financial records, the timeline of their affair. The manager's face went pale. I didn't need to say much. The evidence spoke for itself. They've been using company hours, company funds, and company resources to cheat, I said coldly. I thought you should know before it becomes a scandal. Later that day, I got a call from my husband. Tanya, he said, panicked. Something's going on. I got called into HR. Oh. I replied sweetly. That's odd. They said someone filed a complaint. With evidence. I hummed. Maybe you should talk to your work wife. You two seemed very close. There was a pause. Tanya. What did you do? I did what you were too arrogant to expect. I planned. Click. The day after I handed him the divorce papers, the house was a war zone, but I was still the calmest one in it. He came storming in through the front door like a hurricane in a button-down shirt, slamming it behind him so hard that the frame rattled. You set us up. He shouted, his face blotchy with fury. You think you're clever, huh? Reporting me to HR? Are you insane? I sat on the couch, legs crossed, sipping my tea like I was watching a rerun of a show I already knew the ending to. I didn't set you up, dear, I said coolly. You handed me all the weapons. I just pulled the trigger. He paced the living room like a caged animal. You've ruined my life. They're investigating everything. My expense reports, my calendar, even my emails. I tilted my head. Well, that's what happens when you abuse company resources to play house with your little side chick during work hours. Should have kept it in your pants. His jaw tightened. I made one mistake. One? You made a career out of lying, gaslighting, and humiliating me. And now that it's blown up in your face, I'm the villain? You blindsided me, Tanya. I stood now, eye to eye with him. You were going to blindside me with a divorce, I said, my voice dropping. You and her were laughing about it, remember? How you'd leave me with nothing because you thought I was weak, dependent, easy to manipulate. He flinched. I could tell he remembered. I could tell he hadn't expected me to ever listen, let alone act. I walked to the table, picked up a second envelope and tossed it at his feet. What now? He snapped. Breakdown of assets, I said. The house is in my name. The business account? I removed your name. The car lease? Transferred. The joint savings? Already moved. Everything you used to impress her with my money, gone. His face went pale. You can't do that. Oh, I already did. You should have read the prenup before planning your little escape route. Clause 17, remember? Infidelity voids all shared claims. My lawyer had a field day. He sank into a chair, trembling. You're evil. No. I'm fair. I gave you 8 years of my life, supported you when you had nothing, and believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. And this is how you repay me? He opened his mouth to speak, but I was already walking away. And by the way, I called from the stairs, you have 30 days to vacate the house. After that, you'll be trespassing. I shut the door behind me and leaned against it. It was done. He had nothing left but a ruined reputation, a bitter mistress, and a cold reminder of the woman he never should have underestimated. They say divorce is war in a courtroom. But for me, it was therapy, because every document I signed, every asset I reclaimed, every lawyer I met with, was one more stitch in the wound he tried to leave wide open. He thought it would be easy. He thought I would cry and beg, that I'd take whatever scraps he threw my way because he was the successful one. He didn't realize that the empire he flexed with was built on my shoulders. And now that I stepped away, the whole thing came crashing down. We started the proceedings 3 weeks after I served him the papers. He came in with a suit too tight and a lawyer too smug. She looked like she hadn't read the fine print. I came in calm. My lawyer was a woman named Adele. Quiet but deadly. The kind who knew the law like poetry and had a mean streak sharper than broken glass. They tried to push for a 50-50th split. Claimed the house was joint property even though the deed was solely in my name. Tried to argue that he contributed emotionally to the household, so he deserved a cut of my business earnings too. Adele smiled and handed them the prenup. The one he signed 8 years ago when he had nothing, the one that stated if infidelity occurred, he forfeited any claim to shared assets. Ironclad. Signed. Witnessed. Filed. I watched his lawyer's smirk vanish like steam. Your Honor, Adele said, cool as a breeze, we also have documentation of the affair. Emails from his company account, and expense reports misused to fund his mistress's gifts and hotel stays, all during working hours. His termination letters from his employer and hers are in this packet as well. His lawyer looked at him in horror. You didn't tell me you were fired for misconduct? He mumbled something about misunderstandings. I didn't even blink. The judge reviewed the documents for 15 minutes before slamming the gavel down. The court finds the plaintiff's requests justified. Full asset retention is awarded to the petitioner. Translation? I got everything. The house. The car. The business. The savings. He walked out with the clothes on his back and a mountain of shame. Not even a week after the ruling, I heard from a mutual friend, Sarah, a former co-worker of mine, that the mistress, his so-called work wife, had dumped him. Apparently, she thought they'd ride off into the sunset together, but reality hit hard. Without a job, without his shiny lifestyle, he was just average. Worse than average, actually. He was unemployed, in debt, and now living in a rented room with peeling paint and paper-thin walls. The hotel lifestyle disappeared the moment the corporate credit card got cancelled. She bailed after finding out he had lied about his half of our wealth. She thought he was getting millions. He got nothing. I heard the breakup was loud. Screaming, crying, her throwing his phone out the window and shouting in the hallway of some cheap apartment complex. You lied to me. You said you were divorcing her and taking everything. You said she was dumb and weak. He tried to tell her she was different. She told him to rot. A few weeks later, I got a message from him. Just a short one, you won. No apology. No remorse. Just 3 bitter words full of everything he never said when I needed him. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo on social media. Me, on a rooftop overlooking the coast, wine in hand, hair windblown, face glowing. The caption, rebuilding doesn't mean starting over. It means finally building without dead weight. He saw it. I know he did. That same mutual friend told me he liked it from a burner account. Let him watch. Let him sit in the ruins of what he thought he controlled. Because he forgot something. The quiet ones, the patient, loyal, forgiving ones, we don't stay broken. We sharpen. We rise. We strike when it matters. And we always remember who threw us into the fire.